Allow me for a moment to take a hypothetical scenario for you. As students at BYU, Idaho, we are enrolled in common classes. The criteria is spelled out for us, and collectively we set out to meet a unified set of goals. Now imagine that one day, much to your great shock, while discussing the class with a male peer, you discover that for some reason, upon completing the class, he will receive a full 3 credit hours, whereas you will only receive 2.25 hours. There's no reason for this that you can understand. You've done the same work, completed the same requirements, and yet at the end of the day, this is the reality you must live with. This seems like a far-fetched notion, and one that in today's society we would all balk at. Yet the broader implications of this are happening all across America with gender inequality, and it is real. Systematic gender discrimination impacts the daily lives of women on all levels. As Americans take continuous steps backwards in equal pay for women, access to quality health care for women, and sexual harassment and abuse, now more than ever, feminism is something that every US resident must strive to promote. As you recall in my opening topic, I talked about the inequality of credit. Though this may seem unrealistic in today's comparisons, this is occurring daily in workplaces. Gender-based wage inequality is still very much alive in 2017. Women make up half of the workforce in the US, and according to the Institute for Women's Policy Research, women are now receiving more college and advanced degrees than men. Yet, as of 2015, for every dollar earned by a man, his female peer will only receive 80 cents. As calculated by Business Insider, that is a median of $10,800 per year. And that is only if she is a white female peer. The numbers are lower for women of racial or ethnic minorities. Let that sink in for a minute. The IWPR claims that for white women to reach wage parity, it will take until 2059. That's another 44 years from now. And again, that's only if she is a white woman. This is just one of the reasons we need feminism in our daily lives. We need to confront the injustices of pay discrimination and say that we can do better than this. Feminism is not a dirty word, as some may seem to think. Rather, it is the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of equality of the sexes. That's from the Merriam-Webster Dictionary. Advocacy for equal rights. Do you have another 44 years to wait around and simply hope that someday someone will decide to give equal pay for equal work? I don't, not in the slightest. In this moment, we need advocacy for basic rights, for equal pay. This is why we need feminism. And when women do not have enough money to meet their basic needs, things like healthcare fall away. Healthcare is an equally important platform where the marginalization of women is affected and needs feminism. In 2016, the election in November was one of the most contentious of all American history. One large aspect of that was the attempted repeals of the Affordable Care Act. While on the surface this may seem merely political in ideology, the realities are far graver for women's rights. According to the Human Rights Watch, the ACA provides critical protections for women's health care. More of the ACA repeal was centered around women's health care than any other aspect. It talked about raising premiums or completely reducing and eliminating access to protected rights in birth control, which is more than just for pregnancy prevention. It treats life-altering conditions, health cancer screenings, annual exams, and perhaps most disturbingly, post-sexual assault services and treatment. The moralization and sexualization of women's health care has been served as a justification for these lines of thinking. And it is a disturbing trend as we watch the reduction in support for these services and others such as Planned Parenthood, which creates a dangerous gender inequality because, as a side note, there's a disproportionate amount of women and children who fall below the poverty line, which use these services exclusively for their health care. In this realm, we absolutely need to advocate for feminism as we reclaim the process and access to quality health care and life-supporting services. We need feminism to stop the sexualization and moralization of basic human rights and to help ensure that we all have the means to gain quality health care. And this brings me to my last point, which also centers around the need for feminism in the sexualization of women. The recent and ongoing coverage of mass sexual misconduct and harassment within Hollywood and Congress is pulling back an ugly curtain and an ugly reality of sexual harassment in the US. The Me Too movement shows the sheer volume of women who've experienced unwanted sexual attention. The Child Mind Institute reports that by the time they reach their teen years, 99% of girls have experienced sexual harassment. Please take a moment and truly think about that. That means that for every group of 10, 13-year-old girls, 9 of the 10 will have already received unwanted sexual attention. The hypersexualization of women and girls in the US culture starts in infancy. And as a result, we have what we are just now starting to understand, a harassment epidemic. As a result of this, sadly, for a large swath of society, this behavior is acceptable and even normalized. As more victims of sexual harassment come forward sharing experiences, a harsh light is shining on the long history of normalization and cultural permissiveness surrounding unwanted sexual attention. This is the society in which we live. Consider again those 10 girls. Each of you know girls that age. Now, please imagine explaining to those girls who have been sexually harassed why it is allowed and acceptable for a systematic hypersexualization of these women to occur within our nation. This is why we need feminism. We need voices to stand up and change the narrative and say, this is not what we choose for women in our society. We need advocacy to make meaningful changes to sexual misconduct laws and to be a voice for the victims who are marginalized and silenced through the established power of society. We need feminism because we need to no longer have 99% of all women sexually harassed by the time they are teenagers. 80 cents on the dollar, protection for basic health care, 9 out of 10 girls. The reality is that we need feminism in this society, not just because of pay gaps, the ACA, or sexual harassment. These are just a few in a sea of many, many reasons. Where we stand now as individuals is to decide if we are advocates or impediments. Feminism is not the bra burning of the 1960s. It is not the man eating of the 1980s. It never has been. Feminism is the advocacy of women's rights based on the equality of the sexes. Women's rights are merely humans' rights. It is up to each of us to decide if we are willing to take the call that is demanded for equality and make it work. Much as history has looked back on the cultural moments of societal evolution, so too will future generations look back now at this treatment of women. And my challenge to you is, what side of history do you want to be remembered on? Will you be remembered as a bystander, or will you answer the call to feminism? Speak up, find advocacy, find a way to make your voice heard, and work for a better society for everyone now. Thank you.